This is when adrenaline soars, pressure is heightened, and expectations are raised.
Now, Rex, the runner-up, number 2, is Rory McIlroy. The world number 1 is number 2 on our list. And Rory, not just for his on-course performance, which was obviously excellent, but Rory in 2022, he spoke out, and he also stepped up. Thinking just about the golf. We'll stick with the golf first. Just once since the Masters tournament did Rory McIlroy finish outside the top 20 on a leaderboard. That consistent excellence rocketed him back up the world rankings, ascended the number 1 spot in the world for the first time since 2020. But that also coincided with this new leadership role that he took on with the PGA Tour, becoming the de facto spokesperson in the Tour's ongoing war against LIV Golf. When you think back to Rory, Rex, and all that he did, all that he said in 2022, you think it's more memorable for the way that he played or the way that he led?
Yes. I mean, that's the only possible answer,
yes,
right?
And yes.
Yeah, I mean, because it's impossible to separate out the two. Right? We sort of bored you in one of the earlier top 5s about sort of the GWA male player of the year.
I don't think process. We bored anyone.
Well, no, because it is a fascinating conversation. It's a fascinating debate that I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out, to be quite honest with you. I mean, between Rory, Scotty Scheffler, and Cameron Smith, you can make a really, really good argument for any of those 3 players to be the male player of the year. We're not talking about the PGA Tour player of the year. We're talking about a global player that accomplished
calendar year 2022.
Along with those awards, we also have an award, the Golf Writers Association of America, that sort of recognizes the player for being the most media friendly or the most outspoken or whatever the case may be, the most articulate, however you want to define media friendly. And I have tried in recent years to get Rory on that ballot. And I've always kind of gotten pushback for some of the older golf writers because they correctly pointed out it's probably a little bit too young. If you look at the players who've won that, it's your Davis Loves. I guess the exception would be Adam Scott won last year. So I guess that would put Rory in the mix. But it's usually a player that's in their 50s that has done this over the course of their career. And I put him on the ballot this time because I'm nominating committee of 1 apparently this time around. And I did get pushback, but my argument is name me another player in the history of the game, really, but let's go back 20, 25 years, whatever window you want to do, that not only took on the mantle of being, look, I'm going to be the spokesperson. I'm going to be the front-facing person on this particular issue, and I'm going to take all your heat. Throw me everything you have, because this is important to me. And every time you ask me, I mean, I want to say it was at one of the playoffs. Oh, it was at Eastlake, where someone said, Rory, I know you don't want to talk about LIV Golf, and he immediately shook him off. And it was, no, what do you have?
He's like, bring it on.
Yeah, what do you have? Because I have never seen a player so wholeheartedly digging in. Look, there's been plenty of players who would answer whatever question you gave to them. Davis Love being an example. I mean, that's why we awarded him this particular award. But it's not as though he embraced something that was this controversial. And he was fine being the lightning rod. And then you add to that how he played. I mean, I don't know a player on either side of the ledger. I've talked to players on the PGA Tour side, and I've talked to players on the LIV Golf side. Graham McDowell, I don't know how he did it. That not only was he more than willing to stand on that stage and say and answer any question you threw in his direction, but then he went to the golf course and he backed it up with his play. I mean, it was an amazing season on a lot of levels. I could make a really good argument just based on his play that he should be the male player of the year. But if you factor in what he also did off the golf course and what he meant in this, whatever side of the debate you're on, you can't deny that Rory is driving the narrative. There's no ignoring that he has been the man of the year, I would argue.
No golfer had a busier schedule in 2022 than Rory McIlroy. And I'm just talking about the international travel and the tournament schedule. I'm talking about, I think we're only just now, Rex, this is early December, we're only just now getting a glimpse of how many meetings, how many conference calls he was on with PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan, Tiger, and assorted other tour leadership members. He was doing that in addition to then doing pre-tournament press conferences at almost every tournament that he played in, because obviously the tour wanted to promote this guy who's a spokesperson, but also he's one of the best players in the world. He was playing great. And that's kind of how those media availabilities work. So he has conference calls, Then he has media obligations. And then, oh, yeah, do you mind just also playing the 72-hole tournament when you have a little bit of free time? Like, that's what he was doing.
Playing well. And playing well.
And playing well. So as that is the backdrop, and Roy never admitted it was a burden. He never said that he had like any extra incentive to stick up for the PGA Tour, to play his best this year, to knock back all the detractors of the tour and all the promoters of Live Golf. But it is easy to see the correlation, is it not? I mean, just one finish outside the top 20 since the Masters. Live Golf officially launched in early June. He elevated his game to a point where it was almost his career best. I mean, it was the fourth time in his career that he kind of touched that mythical +2 strokes gained total. The other years that he did it were 2019 when he was the PGA Tour Player of the Year, 2014 when he won 2 major championships, 2012 when he also won a major championship. So as that is the backdrop, it was amazing. I mean, his golf was exceptional. And as we enter now this very brief offseason before the season resumes again at Kapalua in early January, like Roy's the guy to beat in world golf in 2023, which has not really been the case over the past couple of years.
He has dismissed, as you pointed out, sort of the cause and effect here, right? He's dismissed the idea that, okay, I played well just to prove a point. But in my mind, it's impossible to think otherwise, because when he won in Canada, he was very, very quick to point out that, I just surpassed someone else. And by someone else, he was referring to Greg Norman, who's become sort of the antagonist on the other side and someone who Rory loves poking. And it's impossible not to think that just didn't come to him in the heat of the moment. He had thought about that whenever, and certainly earlier in the week and in Canada, that, if I win here, I get to rub his nose in it.
He was literally thinking about that on the eve of the final round.
Like,
he was just perusing the PGA Tour all-time wins record. Like,
I get to drag Greg Norman in the yard and rub his nose and poop, because this is what I'm going to be able to do. And this is a good opportunity. So it's impossible in my mind not to separate the idea that I really want to rub Greg Norman's nose and poop. So I'm going to win this event because it was that important to him. I'm working on a story that we're going to run sometime in December, however it works out. And Brad Faxon gave me the idea. So this goes back to sort of the divide. It's very, very clear the people who don't like Greg Norman, like whatever the reasons are. One of the main growing list of people who don't like Greg Norman. One of the main reasons, of course, is, Greg, this isn't a new concept. Greg sort of put this world tour concept out there back in the 90s, back in 1994. And I sort of want to break down that meeting in 94, which was in Los Angeles. It was at Thousand Oaks. It was at Greg's event, and all the top players were there. And I've talked to a lot of players who were in that room and sort of comparing and contrasting how Arnie and Jack sort of worked that room and how they sort of dealt with that challenge to the PGA Tour versus what Tiger and Rory did specifically at the Wilmington, Delaware meeting earlier this year when they all got together and started working against the tour, but really what they've done ever since. I'm in Albany as we tape this, and there was a meeting led by Tiger, and Rory was on the Zoom call, and all the top players were there, and it's just kind of a continuation of what they talked about. But the one thing that I've sort of discovered talking with people who were in that meeting in Wilmington and also in that meeting back in 1994 is that the similarities between Tiger and Rory and Arnie and Jack, where by and large I've been told that Jack pushed back on the idea of a world tour and what Greg was pitching because he doesn't like to play the week before a major championship. It had nothing to do with legacy. It had nothing to do with saving the PGA Tour. It's nope, that doesn't fit into my schedule. I want to win. I want to win 18 major championships, and this makes it difficult for me to do that. So I don't have any interest. However, when he did talk, people listened. He was Jack, and talking with people in that room, I talked to Basinger and Davis Love and Brad Faxon about it. He said very, very little. But what he said was very, very important. And I would argue that Tiger Woods has followed a very, very similar format. He has not been front-facing like Rory has in this ongoing divide. However, behind closed doors, when he can just talk to the top players and do it frankly, he has said the right things. Whereas Rory has been very much like Arnie. I was told Arnie stood up in that meeting and declared back in 1994 that this isn't going to happen. We created the PGA Tour. That's not the PGA Tour. We're not going to allow it. Me and Jack aren't going to allow this to happen. He was the front-facing voice on this. He was the Rory McIlroy, and I find it fascinating to see the similarities between those four superstars.
Yeah, that's a great parallel that you've drawn there. Make sure you guys check that one out on golfchannel.com in the month of December. Rex,
Maybe.
I think what's interesting about Rory in 2022, you have to think back to the Ryder Cup in the fall of 2021. It was a tearful performance there. He felt like he let Captain Padraig Harrington down. He seemed lost with his direction. He admitted earlier in the year that he was caught chasing distance, and he had a brief coaching relationship with Pete Cowan and kind of pushed his long lifetime coach Michael Bannon to the back burner. Like Rory McIlroy in late 2021 was a little bit lost. He had gone at that point more than 7 years without a major championship. I don't think if you're a PGA Tour supporter, like 2022 and the Live Golf Divide was a good thing for the PGA Tour, certainly for the elite golf at the very top level. It has fractured the sport probably irreparably. However, for Rory McIlroy, this distraction, this animosity, this fuel may have come at the absolute perfect time for his career. It almost seems like it's jump-started him. It's given him more motivation. Like he wants to be the best player in the world. He wants to be in the mix at the major championships. He wants to win more of these legacy events on the PGA Tour. You look at him as a whole now. He's 33, 34 years old, whatever the case may be. He has a lot of good golf still to be played. And this has given him just a little bit of spark. He's always had that knock against him, right? Like his life is so good. He's got 500 mil in the bank. Like he kind of lacks motivation on a weekly basis. He wasn't able to skate at all in 2022 because the eyes were on him. The tour's eyes were on him. Fans' eyes were on him. Live defectors and Live supporters and tour bashers were all on him.
That was by design.
And he
wanted it.
Yeah. And
he wanted it all.
And he stepped up. And so I'm curious to see where we go in 2023. I don't think either of us are expecting as much animosity. There's still going to be some venom, particularly Live and whether or not they get world ranking points. But there should be a slightly more refined focus to the golf in 2023. And I'm curious to see if Rory's fire is still burning just as hot in 2023 as it was in 2022.
Here's the danger of our job, and you and I are just as guilty as the next person, so I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but there was a reporter who asked Rory 2 years ago. I looked this up in a transcript just to make sure I remembered it correctly, and you're going to remember this. I believe it was at the Players' Championship. The question was, is your best golf behind you? And those kind of questions do not age well. Like I
can probably guess who asked that too.
Yeah, you probably can. But it shows sort of the quicksand that we get into. I think I mentioned sort of being a prisoner of the moment. And look, probably when you look back 20 years from now, when you look back at 2022 and whatever's going to happen with Live Golf, you're going to be like, oh, Rory didn't win another major. Well, he contended in all four, and he did win big events, and he won the FedEx Cup, and he won DP World Tour, season-long race, all of these things. Like, you're right. You can make the argument this was the best year of his career, even without a major championship, which is something I don't think I would have said very often about Rory McIlroy, simply because of the importance he puts in that. I got to be honest with you. This is why I can't have nice things. I'm so jealous that your microphone is working and your voice sounds so good, and I'm sure mine just sounds like I'm talking into a tin can. I broke my mic. That's why I can't have nice things. I'll admit it.
$150 mic has since been destroyed. No wonder the IT department is not sending you any sort of new cord to fix this. You're right, Rex. Like, it all comes down to the majors in 2023 for Rory McIlroy. He's done everything in the game since that 2014 Open Championship at Royal Liverpool. He's won Players Championship. He's won FedEx Cup titles. He's won multiple FedEx Cup titles. He's won the DP World title. He's won National Opens. He's won playoff events. Like, literally, he's won Bay Hill. Like, anything that he's wanted to accomplish besides a major championship, he has done. The next step then is winning a major. And it does feel like it's a fresh start. Like 2014 was so long ago. He was at such a different phase in his career, his game, his life. Like he says he kind of feels like he's chasing that first major all over again, which is probably the right mindset that you would want to take. I think he did make strides, Rex, on that major front in 2022. You look back in kind of diagnosing the reason why he had gone majorless for now 8+ years. It was slow starts. And if you're playing armchair psychologist, you'd say, wow, if this dude's throwing up 72, 73, 74 in the opening round and then rallying over the last 3 rounds to finish inside the top 5, there's some sort of stage fright there. There's some sort of mental block, mental hurdle that he's experiencing in that first round that's not allowing him to play his best golf. And so you look at what he did in 2022. Look, opening round of the Masters cost him once again a shot at the green jacket, ended up shooting 64 in the final round and finishing second for his best career Masters finish. But he was 67 or better in the last 3 majors of 2022, the PGA, the U.S. Open, and the Open Championship. I certainly think back to the Open, and it's just kind of scratching my head. 4-shot lead along with Victor Hovland, the 54-hole co-leaders, and just shooting 70, hitting all 18 greens in regulation. His only birdies coming as 2-putt birdies on par 5s was such a head scratcher. And so I feel like he got over one hurdle, right? Like he got past the slow starts that had dogged him over the past 8 years, but there's still one final step that he has to take, and it just comes down to wanting it too much. I think that's all the St. Andrews Open was he wanted it too much and was pressing too much.
Certainly, I would agree with you when it came to St. Andrews. I think when it came to the U.S. Open and the PGA Championship, that was a little bit different, but we all know what that would mean to him. Again, we've talked about this earlier, that winning an Open at St. Andrews comes with a little bit extra. It's worth 1.5 player jugs in a lot of people's minds, and he knows that better than anyone. You're right. I mean, I don't know how many times we had asked him following a poor first round. I even go back one step further. He opened it with a 73 at the Players Championship, where he puts himself at these big events and he's immediately behind the 8 ball, and suddenly he's got to start playing catch up, and you can see the frustration in his face. So yes, I think he did take a huge step on that front, but I think the other half of this is he played really, really good golf in the major championships. He just lost. I mean, someone else outplayed him. Certainly, if you look at what Cam Smith did at St. Andrews, man, it's impossible not to just give the nod, tip of the cap to him. And because Rory played pretty well. I know it was a final round 70. He didn't seem to have his best stuff, but he did give it a run, and Cam was just better.
I mean, yeah, we're not taking anything away from a guy who shot 64 in the final round. It was a historic final round performance from Cam Smith. However, if Rory just converts 2 more of those chances, they go into a playoff. Like, that's not all that unreasonable. He had I think it was a difficult Friday.
It's funny how easy you can make that sound. Just 2 more. Just convert 2 more. That's all you need to do.
I mean, he hit 18 greens. He didn't make birdie.
I don't know
14,
what was his proximity to the hole. I would ask on that.
Well, yeah, he certainly didn't have his best. He certainly didn't have his best stuff on Sunday, but he didn't convert 14. That was one that certainly got away from him. Like, he shot 73 in the 3rd round, the difficult 3rd day at Brookline. At the PGA, shot 74 in the 3rd round. Like, he hasn't quite put, and obviously the 1st round of the Masters where he blew his chances there, he hasn't quite put all 4 rounds together. Will that happen in 2023? I don't know. You'd certainly think it would if he continues to play the golf like he did at the back half of 2022. You would certainly like his chances, but you only get 4 of them a year. John Rahm's playing great golf. Cameron Smith continuing to play great golf. Scotty Scheffler, as we mentioned at the top of this podcast, isn't going anywhere fast. It's not a given that Rory McIlroy in 2023 is going to win a major, but boy, each passing year, it only gets more difficult. So Rory is the number 2 story that we decided for golfchannel.com. Just to recap, Scotty was number 5, Cam Smith number 4, Tiger Woods, the unfamiliar spot of number 3, and then Rory McIlroy speaking out and stepping up in the world of golf in 2022.